Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Wild Mystics. I'm Barbara Moore, and I'm here with my good friend, Charles Harrington.
Good to see you, Barbara, and good to be back here once again talking about all things wild and all things mystic.
Yes, and I believe we had some questions on some of our previous videos, such as, hey, tell us what liminal means. So,
Yeah, it's silly that when we gave the first presentation, that's the first thing we covered is like the definition of liminal. It comes from the Latin, and we
mm,
just went right into the middle this time. So,
yeah,
so Barbara, what do people say liminal all the time? That's so liminal when they're talking about like spiritual things. But like, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, liminal comes from the Latin word Lyman or Limon. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Limen. And it means threshold, which is the thing you walk over when you're going through a doorway. So it is a place of transition from one space to another. And when we think about all things spiritual, we often think of it as a space that's between spaces because when
Mhm.
we're in a spiritual state, we often transform and so we come out the other side in another place, so to speak.
Yeah. So like just like in our lives, our house would not be liminal because that's a place we live. And then like if you were if it was 4 years ago and you worked in an office building, that wouldn't be liminal because again, that's like a destination. You spend time there,
Right.
right? But the like the subway station or the hotel room or the airport,
Hmm.
or even maybe the coffee shop on the way can be
Hmm.
like liminal space. Like you're not, it's meant to be transitional.
Right, right. That's an excellent point. I forgot. Yeah, it's a place where you're only meant to be there for a short amount of time. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, like hallways are like your house isn't liminal, but a hallway in your house might be liminal. Or
Right. Because you don't spend time in the hallway. Like that would be and so sometimes when I see like maybe a spiritual person posts like an image like it's so liminal, like a let's say like a beautiful desert vista with these like wonderful like crazy mountains, and it's so strange. And the answer is like no, it's not liminal, that's otherworldly, right? Like that is the other world. But an example I saw this is if you pull back and now we see like that same beautiful mountainside, but also like you see the freeway in front of it with a stop sign, that's when it's liminal, right? It's sort of
right.
between the worlds.
Yeah. Well, and then when you start talking about images like that, you can slip over into another topic we might want to talk about in the future,
uh,
hauntology.
Hauntology would, oh, that's it, we can have a whole thing on him right in that one. So the one of the reasons we think of like a tarot reading being liminal is that for most clients, uh don't they, they're going through their life, and then the going to a tarot reader is sort of the otherworldly part of it, and it's a moment, it's a point in their journey where they are sort of stepping out of the stream of their life and adjust, like evaluating and trying to get some information. And sort of we exist sort of at this border between things. And also, um, you and I are very smart people, obviously. We're really wise, centered, grounded people, but no one comes to us for our advice, for a tarot reading. Like they have people for that. They have all kinds of people that can give them common sense advice. But the idea might be that there is the spirit, the divine, however you define the divine, if that's deity, the universe, spirit, or like if you're more of an atheist, the human brain's ability to process things in a nonlinear way. They're looking for that information, right? And then we represent sort of a mediator between the divine and the querent.
Yeah. Um, and and knowing that helps us understand how important it is for us to help the querent actually know that they're entering a liminal space because when you're in a liminal space, your brain perceives and processes things differently, I think.
Mhm.
So, there are many opportunities within a reading to recognize the existence of a liminal space, and as a reader to maybe if not lean into it, at least understand what's going on.
Yeah. Now,
Like, well, and you like to tell the story about stepping into a reading space and what a liminal experience that can be for a queer.
yeah. So I think like the great example of that is always horror films. When someone goes to the actually any film where there's a reader of some kind, there's like an otherworldliness or stepping out of the norm that happens, and like usually they move from a place that is light into a darkened room where there's bright lights. Now there's candles. There's strange decor, skulls on the wall, crystals, all of that stuff that like, if the camera pulled back, people would see. But there's this sort of idea, right, that we're not just we're not in Kansas anymore, I guess, really. And you've talked about for a long time, tarot readers thought everything had to be business casual. But
I don't
so
think that
there's
did
other.
anyone any favors.
It was an attempt. It was an attempt, really. So you've identified other liminal points in a reading.
Hmm. One of the most interesting to me is the space between the question and the answer.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? Because one of my favorite things to say to queerants is don't ask if you don't want to know.
Mhm.
So the space between the answer and the question and the answer, anything's possible.
Mhm.
So be in that space, and how does and even inviting your querent to recognize that can be fascinating for them. Like, you're in the space, there's no answer yet. Think about all the possible answers that you could get. You just Yeah, that. And well, we've talked about the moment between the seeing the spread or seeing the images and the interpretation.
Mhm.
That's a liminal space. Um, do you
Yeah,
have
for
a
me, so I shuffle the card if I'm reading for myself. I tend to shuffle the cards and put everything face down. And there's this sort of pregnant moment before the reading. Now, some decks, reversals are obvious from the backs, like the one I designed, that's intentional. Tarot of the Vampires, that um, the backs, if the lily is up, it's a reversal, and so that actually also creates a sense of vulnerability for the client, like if you know what you're doing, like there's a bunch of reversals here, but there's a moment sort of between flip the card face down, the card face up, that's liminal. And like a really useful thing to do is sort of to check in with self about all of the hopes and fears we have for the reading, like if it's for ourselves and we want this to go well, or if it's for someone else and we want it to go well so that they'll like us afterwards. There's kind of a moment to like release attachment to that. You take it like a one breath and just sort of, it could be anything, as you said, it could be anything. There could be any answer in the tarot is possible, which is a good and a bad thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope this helps people understand more what we mean about liminal. I mean, we could
Mhm.
talk for more, but we're trying to keep these timely. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But so okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to cover with liminal and in the definitional sort of
mm,
phase. But I guess I think we're so good at this, right? We've
so good.
just
Well, we could talk about benefits and how to actually amplify it. And we
yeah,
may do that in future videos,
that
right?
will do that in the future. Okay, right on. Well, it has been a slice.
It has. See you guys later. Bye.